everyone, and welcome to today's session of the Cloudways BFCMPrepathon. On behalf of the Cloudways team, we are joining as the host with Milada Vukovic, and super excited to see such amazing guest with us.
Hi everyone, I'm Milada. I work in customer success here at Cloudways, and I've previously worked in customer success, engineering, and marketing in IT companies. I'm very excited to talk to our guests today. So stay tuned, it will be an amazing topic.
That's for sure. And I'm Oksana. I'm a head of social media at Cloudways. And I have been working in the digital marketing for 8 years and thrilled to be here in a great company. So today we are here to talk about how women are impacting the digital world, and I'm sure that our guest will share some special insights to help you win this upcoming sales season as a business owner, and of course how they own their strategies and how they are changing the digital sphere and setting trends. I guess this year is not easy for everyone due to a possible global recession, so everyone needs some inspiration and tips on how to prepare your strategy without spending too much time. Let's go to our guest and start with a bit of introduction. So welcome everyone. Pia, Reese, Raluca, so glad to see you today. Just share some words about your experience, about yourself.
Who wants to go first?
Knock yourself out.
Okay, I'm Pia Silva. My company is called Worst of All Design. We are a branding agency. We build badass brands without the BS for 1 to 3 person service businesses. I'm also the founder of No BS agencies, where I teach this model to other 1 to 2 person branding agencies. So we build entire brands in 1 to 3 day intensives for very small businesses, and I teach other agencies how to do the same.
Thanks, Pia.
Great, Pia.
I'll go ahead. I'm Reese Spykerman. I'm a marketing consultant, and I have been in digital marketing for 20 years, which I kind of can't believe, honestly. I am a one-woman show, so I will consult directly with mainly e-commerce businesses, but I also have some service-based businesses. And the nutshell of what I do is I basically help make it easy for customers to want to buy from your business. And I do this with conversion rate optimization on your website, copywriting, and messaging strategy. So basically having say the right thing at the right time, depending on where your customer is at in their journey with you. And there's a whole lot of other things I do on the side, like design and product description writing, but for the most part, I focus on the strategy, and I'm really excited to be here today.
Oh, it's great to have you here. Raluca, please go ahead.
Okay, so I guess it's my turn now. I'm Raluca Radu, and I've been working in digital marketing for 17 years. Also, just like Chris was saying, I can't believe it's been so long. I graduated computer science actually, and I discovered that I'm much more passionate about branding and strategy. And I found in digital marketing sort of a silver lining between technology and my passion, which was marketing. And I think that's useful to know for everyone starting up. I run my own digital marketing agency, and we work with especially e-commerce and lead generation clients, and we help them build their brands as well as reaching performance results like return on ad spend and good costs per conversions.
Great, that's something we kind of come across sort of often, kind of women transitioning from a career strictly in the technical fields to marketing and combining their expertise. So that's fun. Oksana?
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. So here's the the agenda for today. And before that, it's gonna be like the question about your own stories, how you joined the digital marketing world. So, what was that one thing that attracted you to this sphere? What was the story behind it? Maybe it was something interesting. Maybe someone, I don't know, uh, someone share something that grabbed your attention and you decided to join it. So yeah, let's start. Who will be first?
I'll go ahead. My main motivation came from wanting to work for myself. Out of college, I got a job at an independent book publisher, and I hated it. I'm introverted, and my day was just constantly filled with distractions and interruptions, and I would be chronically exhausted from all that kind of engagement that most people do as employees. So this is back in 2001 or 2, around that time, and the internet was really fairly in its infancy. It's not like what it is now. And I saw an opportunity to work for myself by designing websites for people. There weren't a whole lot of people doing that. And I started out doing it for bloggers. So this was in the heyday where blogging was just sort of, I wouldn't say becoming popular, but people were starting to do it. And over the years, it evolved to designing websites for businesses and corporations. And then I got away from website design and development. It's in my background, but I just didn't relish doing that. You can get really burned out on it. And it evolved into copywriting and marketing strategy. But it was born primarily out of kind of wanting to steer my own ship and not be beholden to an employer and what they wanted for me to do from day to day. And 20 years later, I cannot imagine going back and being an employee. And there's no judgment. Like, we need employees in this world, right? We need people doing that work. But for me, I'm so thankful that we had this digital landscape that enabled me to work for myself in the way that I do now.
And I think that you're not regretting like at all for this decision, like, right?
No regrets whatsoever. No, it's probably one of the best decisions I made in my life is to go work for myself. And it's not perfect. There's ups and downs. Sometimes you go through periods where you wonder where the next paycheck's coming in, whereas when you're employed, it's just kind of consistent. You know, the money's going to show up every month in your account. But even with all that, I would choose a different path.
Yeah, the risk was worth it, I guess. I heard something similar from Pia, like she wanted to be her own boss, so she would, that's what I've heard on her TED Talk, that she applied for an NGO just so she could run the project as she wanted and not have to answer to anyone. So maybe she can expand on whether some similar motivations drove her to this.
I'm going to take a wild guess that all of us on here and everyone listening, at least one motivation was, I don't want to work for anyone else. I want to work for myself. And this seems like a really great industry to do that in. I would say I went into digital marketing worlds, like depends how you define it, at 2 moments. One was starting my business with my husband, who was a freelance graphic designer at the time. That was just coincidental. Honestly, I would have built a business around whatever he was doing, because I just wanted to build a business. But when I think of digital marketing, and I think more of the building an audience, outreach, being seen, building that audience and pipeline, I think I actually made a concerted effort and intentional effort to learn it and go for it with all of my energy when I published my book in 2017. About 6 months earlier, I had to make a decision. Okay, why am I writing this book? I'm writing this book because I want authority. I want people to, so if I want authority, I need people to read it. Well, how am I going to get people to read it? I need to have an audience. Well, I guess I got to build an audience then. And so that was a very intentional decision. I'm going to go out and learn how to build an audience online. So even though I had been in business for 6 years at that point, to me, that was the real intentional, I'm going to learn what I would think about as digital marketing, as opposed to, we were building brands and websites, but I don't think I was doing much in the realm of marketing until I made that intentional decision for my book. So that's what brought me here.
Thanks, Pia. Yeah, that's a great story. And I think you will share some great insights today about the personal branding and based on your experience. So thanks a lot. Yeah, who's next?
It's me, and I was just starting with this in the beginning. So, in my case, I was specializing in computer science, and I was that kind of tech geek who was watching Mad Men, the series, all the time. And I was fascinated about the advertising world and everything that it had to offer. And I was very upset that I was like 21 years old, I think, and I didn't really understand how could I tap into this advertising world, as nothing from my education was taking me there, and I was all the time reading about advertising and marketing and so on. And back in university, there was a job opening for a web editor. And I said, okay, I think I'm good at creative writing also, and it has something to do with web, so maybe I can do this. It was a part-time job. And it was remotely based. And that's where I discovered SEO at first, search engine optimization, which was a bit of both worlds. So it had something to do with advertising a bit, and also a lot to do with the tech stuff that I was already good at. And that's how I discovered digital marketing, and that's what I really liked about it. The fact that it was advertising with a twist of data and with a twist of actual insights. The fact that I could also apply my mathematics knowledge into the strategy and to really see what works best. You can do, for example, an A/B test and see what creative works best. You can get some data about your buyer persona, your target audience also from the data, and all this stuff really attracted me because it was the best of both worlds. So I could get into this advertising space, but I could also use my tech know-how.
Sounds like a perfect mix. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Raluca. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, it's like there's a common theme of you guys kind of embracing risk and uncertainty and being guided by your inner feelings and wants, and then embracing being a beginner and learning everything it takes to succeed. So since you're all seasoned business women and you've been there in the trenches to witness all of the changes in the digital space over time, what would you say, what evolution have you seen over the years in the digital landscape? We can go with Reese, let's say.
Sure. The biggest thing I've seen is market saturation. So when I started out, if you had a blog or a website or an online shop, you were probably a renegade as a person or a business owner. It was kind of the new frontier at that time. And now everyone can become a personal brand or content creator. And the number of platforms available to do that really easily is just like off the charts. And this accessibility is probably 10,000 times more than it was when I first started. And what it means is there's a lot of noise now in the market. When I initially, 20 years, started out working with businesses, small and medium-sized, you didn't have to do a lot to do things like rank well in Google or stand out from the crowd, if you will, to use a cliche. And now it's just the saturation in the market globally is night and day from when I started. So that's probably the biggest evolution that I've seen.
Yes, I understand what you mean. Raluca, would you add some of your own observations and specifically kind of focus on any changes that you've personally that have personally affected you, and any challenges that arose and how you've been able to overcome them.
I think it has a lot to do with what Reese was saying. Not exactly when I started, but some years ago, especially in e-commerce businesses, and I work a lot with e-commerce businesses, there was usually a very high focus on some KPIs, like the return on advertising spend. And for example, you were looking at what channels and what marketing campaigns are bringing the best ROAS, what campaigns are bringing the best cost per conversion, best customer acquisition cost, and so on. And I think that now things have evolved. And we understood that it's actually more about building a brand, and that we actually have a customer journey behind all this data. And it's not actually one channel or one campaign that is bringing you a customer at a certain cost, but that you really have to have more touch points with the same customer. And you have to have a story, and you have to have a real relationship with that customer along several touch points. And I think this has changed. And together with this, the focus has grown much more into brand awareness, and also into tapping into other channels and being like multi-channel, and having like a multi-channel marketing strategy. So I think that that's how we saw exactly the evolution that Reese was talking about. And the focus has moved from the data to having a real story and a real relationship with the customer beyond the data. So the data is useful, it's like the foundation, but it also matters a lot what you bring to the table. And that's especially because the competition has grown a lot indeed.
Right, so you would say presence, branding, and storytelling kind of have taken the lead. Pia, I would like to ask you specifically for smaller businesses, what they should do to kind of overcome these upcoming challenges and changes, because not everyone has the budget to be present and advertise on many different channels.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I echo what both of these brilliant ladies are saying, and also would add that ever since I've been doing this, because I'm in the small micro business world, which is not, I didn't start spending money on ads until years later, felt like I always had to rely on brand. That's actually what brought me to branding in the first place. It was a very organic evolution, because as a business owner trying to get clients for a graphic design company that did everything, over time I realized the only way I was going to get clients was by building a really magnetic brand, something that was pulling people towards me as much as it was repelling people. And so I think that the evolution has been that the bigger businesses are realizing how important that is too. And the other thing I wanted to share, and I'm curious what you ladies think about this, but my experience has been that the tactics are changing faster and faster. And so the reason that brand and story and having a really clear message, a very singular message, something you can be known for, is so important now is because it's not going to be that this tactic wins or that tactic wins. You're going to have to be nimble and agile and able to try new things, and sometimes they'll work and sometimes they won't. And you have to have that underlying story and message to even have a chance, because some of the tactics that work today are not going to work literally in 6 months. And that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. It just means you have to be ready to kind of capitalize on it and then move on when it isn't. And literally, I've seen things work and then not work 6 months later in my own business. I mean, things that I was doing 12 months ago just kind of fell off a cliff recently. And that's fine. It's more about accepting that that's the landscape and being willing and able to roll with the punches. And I don't think that was as necessary before. I think before you could learn something and it would work for a lot longer. And so the mentality could be, more about becoming an expert on this thing and then doing that. And that's like no longer the case in digital marketing, at least in my experience. It's like, do not get too comfortable because it will change. It's probably going to change pretty quickly.
Thanks, Pia. And the next question is directly connected to this conversation, because we will talk about the building better relationship between brands and customers, and we already covered some things about understanding people, not only understanding numbers, about being super agile during your campaigns, during your strategy. So as for myself and the social media specialist, I know that about the evolution, of course, like if you want to get the results, you need to get people, like to understand them. And about the evolution, there are so many tools that we can use and get the, like, somehow the understanding about our audience. But like Pia said, you need to be super fast with editing, and tomorrow you can use the same message but it could bring another result. So let's maybe also continue the discussion. Raluca, maybe you can also share more about the understanding customers and how it helps you also to build the better relationship for the brands.
So I think there are two main points where digital marketing is helping a lot this relationship. One, and I think the most obvious point, is the social media part. Social media has helped brands be very real time and very close to their customers. Right now, customers can give feedback, whether privately or publicly, to brands, and brands can react real time. And I think, yes, we've already grown accustomed to this because it's been going on for more than 10 years, but actually it's something that has really disrupted this relationship. Like, it's much easier for brands to get feedback from customers, and also much easier to reach customers and to reply when something is wrong, or where something is good, and so on. I think also the word of mouth and the customer reviews much easier. When a customer is happy with a product and is writing a review or a testimonial, this is also much easier, amplified, and is also bringing more customers to a brand. And the other point that I think is vital is the analytics part. The fact that you have so much data in several platforms, whether we look at Google Analytics, for example, for the website or other analytics tool, or whether we look at the social media analytics or all the online marketing research tools which we have, for example, the tools that Google is giving out for free, where you can see you have the Google Market Finder tool that shows you the potential for a business in a different market, or you have the Google keyword research tools, and so on. So all this data is showing you quite real time what is working and what is not. Of course, the data is just quantitative, so it's only numbers, and you also need to make sure you interpret them right. But this data really helps you make assumptions regarding your buyer persona profile, and it's much easier to make informed decisions in your marketing.
Great insights, and completely agree about social media. 100%. Reese, maybe you can also share something that we didn't mention, some secrets that you have on building the bridge.
I wish I had secrets. I don't. I feel like 5 years ago I might have had some secrets, and this relates to what Pia said about it's no longer about tactics. And I remember I used to feel a bit of intimidated because there would be people in my space, Raluca, for example, who probably were very good at certain tactics, and I wasn't. I was more on that overall brand strategy. But increasingly, as these ladies alluded to, it is about that. I want to, in terms of the digital evolution and a couple of things that I am seeing currently working in the space. To Pia's point about knowing what you stand for, having a messaging and positioning strategy in place, and then being able and willing to be nimble as the tactics change. I'm 100 billion% with her on that. Things I'm currently seeing working with the e-commerce businesses that I work with in particular are rewards and referral programs, customer communities, and bringing the digital to the physical. And I'll just touch upon each of those really briefly. So rewards and referral programs, one of the issues I see is people think they just put up the flag of their reward or referral program and it's going to do the work for them. But it does require some thinking and strategy behind it. What will get your customers excited? Don't be stingy with your rewards and referrals, especially if they're referring a new customer to you. That customer is potentially worth gold. So reward them in a really healthy way accordingly. Like give them a generous amount of credit in your store or whatever you decide to do for your rewards and referrals. But it's also a really great way to get people doing things like sharing you with their own communities on social media, leaving a review for your product. The referral programs that I see that have rewards built in will have those kind of mechanisms built in so that when your customers do this and they become evangelists for your brand, they get rewarded accordingly. And I think they should get rewarded accordingly. What I mean by customer communities is this: creating something, a gathering place, if you will, whether it's a Discord server, an online forum. I find Discord is an interesting thing that is doing well right now because of the nature of it being live versus a forum. But this is a place where your customers meet, and they aren't meeting to talk about how awesome your products are. They might, but they're meeting instead because, let's say you're the business REI, which is an outdoor clothing and gear company. Maybe they're meeting to talk about their shared interests, what they do when they go out on the weekends and they go hiking. When you can foster that sense of a third space, we call it, for people to meet outside of their work and their home, and it's associated with your brand, it strengthens the loyalty to your brand, and it helps make you an important part of their life beyond just the product that you're selling them. And the third, bringing digital to the physical. Here's what I mean. I think that people are getting really fatigued with the digital world, our customers. And so when you can look at finding your way into their physical world more and more, it's a smart strategy. So what I mean by that is, let's say you have a customer who has been ordering from you, I don't know, every other month for the past year. Maybe the stuff that you slip into their packaging, the inserts and the other things, are not the same thing that you give them on the first time they ordered from you. Like, you progress along with them on a journey, and maybe you have educational inserts and materials that are different every time, so that when the customer opens your shipment, there's a surprise and delight factor that makes them look forward to receiving something from you beyond just the product itself. It becomes an experience where you are entering their physical world. And this has a deeper, more layered meaning for them, I believe, than just experiencing you in the digital realm. I don't know if that made sense, but hopefully there were a few not so secret tips in there for people.
Absolute gems, Reese. So yeah, thank you for kind of putting everything so simply and providing so much value to our viewers who are tuned in today.
Pia, maybe you have other insights about the personal brand and other strategies to understand the customers.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of building a personal brand online, I think the digital evolution has just allowed us to have really deep relationships with people that we've never met, that are around the world. And it gives us an opportunity it's the reason we can actually be more extreme in our personal branding, because we are not limited to our local market. I always like to tell people who don't want a niche, right? It's a big hot topic. Whenever you work with a client, the person that's hired is always trying to get them to focus, and the person who's hiring is always usually kind of resistant because they feel like they're losing some sort of opportunity. But I always like to tell them, well, there are 7 billion. Are there 8 billion now? Geez, there's 7 or 8 billion people on this earth. And you can say almost anything in a very extreme way and really own a very niche brand and find your people, and you will go deeper with them more quickly because of that specificity in your brand. So the digital revolution has opened up the entire world to us. And any business, like whatever your small business is, right? Like one person business is a small business, so is a 50-person business. But whatever that business is, there's still more people out there than you can possibly serve that will love your particular point of view and your particular take. So I think that's a really important opportunity to embrace. And I'm not sure that the masses of business owners truly understand that opportunity, because the resistance kind of demonstrates that scarcity feeling of there aren't enough people out there. I need to be more general because I don't want to waste opportunity. And really, it's the opposite. The more specific you can be because of the digital revolution, because we can access so many people, the more specific you can be, the faster you're going to cut through the noise, and you're going to find those people, and they're going to go deeper with you much faster, the more specific you are.
Thank you, Pia. So we started talking about branding for businesses and its growing importance, and you kind of touched on the other side of it, which is actually our next question. So each of you runs a business that relies heavily on your personal brand. So we wanted to ask you, what do you think, how important is it for women entrepreneurs in particular to work on their personal branding? And what would your advice be on how should they go about doing it? Raluca, I wanted to start with you.
Okay. Uh, I think it is important, especially in order to also empower other women to do this and to see digital marketing as a career possibility. And I think this is important for our businesses, especially as we are now facing quite an HR crisis, I could say, because there are so many businesses all over the world who are saying that they don't find enough people. And I think this is something that also digital marketing agencies, for example, or e-commerce businesses are facing more and more. So I think it's important to show other ladies that they could pursue a career in digital marketing. And I think that if only for this reason, yes, it is important to have like some role models in this field, or at least this is what I noticed. It's also important because I think there are many specialists that are women that aren't like that don't really feel comfortable to speak up and to come front and, for example, to be speakers at events and so on, even though they are doing a great job. And I think that, yes, if they would build more on their personal brand, it would actually bring more awareness. And I think that in building this personal branding, I think that social media is like the right way to start. And I think that it's always important to start in personal branding with what is most comfortable for you. If you are, for example, good at writing content, that maybe you should start with this. If you are very good at taking photos and writing captions for them, then maybe that's your media. And if you're good at doing videos, then you should go for this. So I think it's important to start with something that feels a bit more comfortable, because you will put yourself out there. So yes, it's best to do it through something that you're good at, to go, for example, through press also, or through interviews, if you feel that this is the best media for you.
Great. So the main advice would be banking on your strengths, existing skills, and leveraging social media for quick quicker exposure.
Yes, and I think that after that, yes, it's like building any type of brand. You will think more about who your buyer persona is, and you'll see what type of content gets the best feedback. But from my experience, usually with personal branding, the toughest part is to actually start and to put yourself out there. So that's why I think it's very, very important to do it through the most comfortable media.
Yes, that makes perfect sense. And in that regard, I was wondering what Reese's experience was starting out, since Reese, you mentioned that you kind of wanted to be by yourself, not exhaust yourself with too much interaction with others. So was it daunting at first, kind of the personal branding aspect of it, and you realizing how that will be a crucial stepping stone to actually achieving success in your business?
Well, to be honest, this is something I have struggled with for most of my career and continue to. And part of it loops around to what I said at the beginning about being an introvert. I find most self-marketing for myself really exhausting. I don't know why. I mean, I've really tried to attack this 8 different ways, but it is what it is. And I'm one of those women, and I know there's a lot of women and some men who feel this way too, where I would just rather put my head down and do the work, but the work won't necessarily speak for itself, right? You need to be your own champion of the work you're doing for clients. And that's a challenge. And I'm 100% with Raluca in that I advise the way to do it is to find the thing that fits your natural gifts best. So, for example, Cloudways asked me to be a part of this panel. That's a really easy yes for me because I do well where I respond to things versus initiate things. So for me to initiate and put out new content on social media is taxing and tiring. But for me to go on a podcast or something similar, like one of these events where I am interviewed and part of a sort of a more organic discussion, it doesn't tire me out as much. I find it really easy. And so I have leaned really heavily into doing events and podcasts as my primary mechanism of personal branding and self-promotion. But I think if there was one broad tip I would love to give anyone listening to this, regardless of their gender, is similar to what Pia was saying about being specific, having a niche. I think this goes for personal branding too, because anyone can put up a fancy website, do social media, get a photo shoot done, and a lot of times they all sort of read and sound and look the same. And people are afraid to have a distinctive opinion or worldview. However, if you can say something, if you can have a perspective or worldview in your work that you don't see other people saying, something that makes your approach different, or what informs your approach or your philosophy, or how you work with clients, use client testimonials to help show what makes you different. If you can do that, you are going to be more memorable and set yourself apart from others in your field. But more importantly, I think to Raluca's point, it also will help connect you to the ideal customer or client for you. If you aren't hanging your hat up there, all these businesses that right now really need employees, they can't find employees, so they're turning to contractors. They'll find you. I was found on LinkedIn a couple of weeks ago and asked to weigh in on a consulting project. I have no idea how they found me. My best guess is maybe podcasts and a little bit of posting on LinkedIn, but they reached out to me. And it was a really good lesson to me that if I work just a little bit more on my visibility, there's probably other companies out there that would love to have me come in and do a one-off consulting job. But unless they know I exist, they aren't going to reach out.
Right, exactly. So the more you work on your branding, the less you have to do the grunt work of you reaching out, and you kind of have the attention and the prospects coming to you. We have
Yeah.
little bit of time left and things to cover. So, Oksana?
Yeah, I think it's a good question to finalize our conversation, like to give some tips that you get from your experience, how basically business owners can already implement in their upcoming strategy and for the sales season. So, what is the one successful strategy that you have developed and implement over the years in your digital marketing campaign to acquire customers? Pia, maybe we can start with you.
Sure. I'll give you an easy one. I don't know if it fits into your parameters that you just laid out, but by far the best thing I ever did for my business was actually to write a book. By far. So my book that I wrote 5 years ago continues to bring me business. How does that relate to digital marketing campaigns? That book is something that I can give away as a freebie. It's something that I can give away the chapter of and send people to the book. It's something I can give as a gift after people opt in. It's something that I have then used to create lots of content around and send people back to the book. It builds a lot of authority. So it's not an easy strategy, but if you want to focus on one thing, I think the bigger takeaway is it doesn't have to be a book, but that there is kind of like a manifesto. There is something really foundational that exists that you put extra effort into that's different than a blog, like a quick social media post, right? It's kind of like, this is what I'm all about, and you put some time into it. You can use that for years. My book will continue to bring me clients for years to come, and I only had to write it once. So that's my one. If I have to pick one.
That's great. That's the original one, actually. Yeah. Thanks, Pia. Raluca, also, maybe you have something to say about your experience?
Yes, it's very related to Pia's experience. In my experience, also content marketing strategies and actually producing evergreen content, whether it's video or a blog or whatever it is, a book, an ebook, usually really pay off. They don't pay off necessarily with a good cost per acquisition of client immediately, but they have long-term results. And on the long run, they are the best strategy still.
Thanks, Reese. Maybe anything to add?
Yeah. So philosophically, I am with both of these ladies on more the evergreen foundational work. Pia, a book is on my list to try to accomplish in 2023. So I'm so glad you said that.
Worth it.
I have a bit different of a strategy that worked. It's evolved. It's one of those tactic-y things that is not working as well. So caveat on that, but I believe there's still merit in this approach. And it's basically a targeted landing page. And this can work for both e-commerce or service-based businesses. You need a really optimized design and you need hyper-specific copy. So back in the day, like 2016, 2017, what I would do is make landing pages that were very specific to, say, the Facebook ad that got you there, so that the experience, the customer didn't feel disoriented, right? They weren't going from an ad to a homepage. They were going from something they had just seen or read, and then the next step on their journey was very related to that. And you can use a page like this to tell a story in a much more robust and visually interesting way than you can a traditional product page. It's really a great way to orient customers. It helps get to the point without forcing them to plow through your homepage or your category pages to figure out what it is that they're looking for. They often see significantly higher conversion rates than normal website pages. However, the ad landscape has really changed this. And it's not that it's no longer an effective strategy. It's not turnkey like it used to be. But I think what is important behind this strategy is the deeper thinking behind it. You can take my same idea and you can bring it to social media. So say like Instagram, or Facebook itself, I suppose. I'm not a TikTok person, so I don't know if this would work there. Maybe Raluca could weigh in. But instead of just in your LinkedIn profile, sending them to your broad brush shop or website, make a landing page that meets them where they are. So if they're coming to you off of Instagram, you want to pop them on a landing page that's going to have a lot of visuals. You don't want to throw a lot of copyright in on them because that's disorienting, right? You need to kind of bridge from where they just came to you from to where you want them to go. Whereas if someone came to you, and I can't really think of a mechanism, all right, no, I've got it. Let's say they were reading a blog and you're using Google Ads to do targeted visual ads embedded within blogs. So they see your ad in the blog for someone else's website and they click through, you know they're clicking through and they were a reader. Okay, if you have that data that tells you that, then you could send them to a landing page that's more heavy on the copy, for example. So that's really like big umbrella overview, but I think the idea here is meet people where they are so that you can kind of orient them a little bit better, and think about that as you're thinking through your Black Friday strategies, especially in the next couple of months.
Great tip. Thanks, Reese. Yeah, and Pia just left our conversation due to some other work-related stuff, and we all thankful for her participation. Yeah, and we have, I guess, one more question to discuss.
Yeah, guys, thank you for staying. I wanted to ask you this, and this also relates to what Raluca mentioned about the importance of having female mentors as a woman entrepreneur. So I trust that throughout your career you faced a lot of discouragement, but hopefully there were some encouraging figures as well. So as kind of a closing note, we wanted to ask you, how would you encourage and empower more women to be future leaders in the digital space? Raluca, let's start with you.
Yes, as I was saying before, I think it's first of all quite important to actually have role models. I think that in the country that I'm living in Romania, it's not exactly such a big problem between women and men entrepreneurs. It's not quite a big gender difference because we are an ex-communist country, and apparently there are positive sides to that, and we have a lot of women in the workforce generally, but not necessarily in management and entrepreneurship positions. So yes, also from my experience, it's important to find role models. And I think it's also pretty important um, to support some positive talk on this topic, because from my experience it gets tougher and tougher, especially for mothers who are in entrepreneurship and top management positions. And I think that all the negative talk about this is not helping at all. I mean, a lot of people saying that you can't really do both. You can't have a career and a family and so on. And I think that this is impacting a lot. I'm not saying that we should switch into the other extreme and say that women should be Wonder Women and do everything and not sleep and so on. But maybe what would also help in this matter is to show more balanced families, and to show more that it's couples where both people are working and both people also take care of the family. So it's not like something that it's not like an initiative that I'm proposing, but I think that each one of us has this responsibility as a woman that is a role model, also to try not to present this perfect image of this Wonder Woman, and to actually explain that yes, we are normal women, we also have a personal life, we have a partner who is obviously supporting us, because this is something normal. And I think this is important because there are usually these two extremes. It's either women can't have a career because they have a family, or there are the overachieving women who are doing everything but are not getting any sleep and are a bit like, I don't know, a bit like Cruella or something. And I think it's important to have role models that show a balanced image, that you can actually have a career, but also a life. And I think that this would help empower more women.
Thank you, Raluca.
Thanks, Raluca. And from my experience as a working mom, also, I think it's super important that that we need to support each other, the women, because overall we have the outside stereotypes, the picture, the perfect picture, as you said. But overall, we need to have kind of strong community inside that we can, support each other, relate to others' problems, right? So yeah, I completely agree with you on this.
Very important points from both of you. Reese, for you personally, what has been the most encouraging when you were starting out, or is still whenever you have self-doubts?
I think it's easier now than when I was starting out, but I don't know if some of that is simply age and experience. But I do get a sense that the landscape in general is making a concerted effort to encourage and uplift women. I'll give you an example. I was on a panel last year for Black Friday with another organization, and there were me, two other women, and I think one man on the panel. And I thought it was really interesting. He said, I'm really excited to be here and to see this kind of representation of women on this panel. And he said, and I'm going to try to talk less and let these ladies talk more. And I'm not saying I think it needs to be that way, because I want to hear men's voices and what they think and say about things too. But I thought it was kind of cool the way that he wanted to make sure that he wouldn't hog the spotlight and that more ideas were coming from the women in the panel. I just thought that was really interesting. But to Raluca's point and Oksana's to a certain extent, I really agree that being honest and transparent is important so that more women can feel that they can be leaders, and it doesn't have to be this grand act of bravery where if they do so, they're going to burn out or they have to give up too many things to be in that position. I'm really transparent about the fact that I have an autoimmune disease. I don't work as many hours as a lot of other women in my field do. I just can't. I get tired. And so rather than pretend to be superwoman and work beyond my limits, I'm really open about that. And I have had many other women and some men come to me and say that it helped them realize that they can give themselves a break too, cut themselves some slack, and that just because they aren't working whatever 50, 60-hour weeks or aren't the most famous visible person on Instagram doesn't mean that they don't have a place in this world and a viewpoint worth considering and hearing. And so I think that honesty is really important to whatever extent you're comfortable with. I'm not saying you need to lay out your whole private life on the line. And the final thing I think can be really helpful, that helped me and that I try to do with others, is uplifting other people, period. One of the best ways you can stand out is by showcasing other people. They will remember you for it, because people are so, in general, like me, and talk about what they did and what makes them great. But when you turn that around and you talk instead about what makes someone else great, like I'm completely blown away right now by Raluca and the stuff she does with data. And I'm kind of like, man, I want some of that work. I could go out and share with the world what I learned from this woman in this panel. And I think that makes me more memorable, but it's also a really good way to be in this world. Like, where can you find ways to uplift other women and men that you come across that you think are worth celebrating and sharing with the world? There is more than enough work out there for all of us. And so when you highlight someone else instead of yourself all the time, I think that people will really remember you for this, and it says a lot about your character when you do this.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more, Reese. And you made several points here about how everyone can actually contribute to female empowerment in business, and it's not just kind of the duty of other women. Everyone can empower each other and give others space to shine and have a voice, which is what you've experienced. And luckily, the landscape is apparently getting better for women, and this is something that is occurring more naturally now. So on that, and you sharing as well what you've learned from Raluca, I was wondering if you guys could tell me how would you rate today's panel experience, and what was the best thing about the session?
Are we talking like 5 out of 5 stars here?
I mean, sure, you can use any metric you want.
Well, rather than do a star rating, that's kind of cheesy. I really enjoyed the organic nature of this conversation. And I think both of you ladies as hosts did a really good job of guiding and facilitating the conversation, and also building off of maybe what Pia or Raluca said, and then saying, Reese or Raluca, can you speak more to what that person just said? And I think that made for a much more nuanced and interesting conversation. And that's what I really liked best. I think you both did a fantastic job as facilitators. So thank you.
Thank you.
That's
Thank
very,
you.
very kind. We were just happy to kind of facilitate and let you guys as guests shine and share your expertise and value. We're also looking to kind of see what you got from each other. So maybe moving on to Raluca, what's your impression and takeaway here?
I also liked meeting these ladies, all of you ladies actually. And yes, I also especially liked Reese's last point. I think it's a very important one, and it's something that I also believe in. And I think it should be said more that yes, it's very important to also let others shine. And this would contribute a lot to the growing of all the digital marketing industry. So, not just the female part of it.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And it was such an amazing experience for us, such an amazing talk. And for our viewers, you can also talk about your takeaways from this panel and share them on your social media channels, tagging Cloudways, and you will have a chance to win some great prizes like Cloudways swag. At 2 p.m. ET, we're gonna have a next section, marketing strategies that maximize BFCM revenue, also featuring Raluca. So yeah, you're the star today, Raluca. And overall, amazing talk. It was an honor to speak with you today. And yeah, Milana, maybe you have anything to add?
Nothing really to add. I want to thank you ladies again for joining, for giving a lot of value so selflessly. You are the rock stars of your industry, and we're lucky to have you join us as guests today. I'm sure that many of the gems you spilled for our audience today will be leveraged in their Black Friday or Cyber Monday strategies. So we're looking forward to having you again sometime, maybe next year, maybe sooner than that. So that's it from Cloudways. Everyone can rewatch this live stream on YouTube. It will be saved. And that's it. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.